Hello everyone, myself Shalini. I am working as assistant professor in the department of CSE from Marri Laxman Reddy Institute of Technology and Management. So today we are going to see about the topic variables and constants in C language. So how do we declare variables and what are the advantages or uses of variables? How do they differ from constants will be our topic today. So let us go into the topic. So first one, what is variable and how are they important to us? So variables and constants are very much necessary in any programming language, because whenever we need to work on some data or whenever we need to write some program on data, definitely we want the data to be stored. So the place for storage should have some name associated with it, which is nothing but variable. So variable can store a value or store the data on which we are going to work. Similarly, constant also can store a value, but we'll see where they both differ, and we'll see how many types of variables are there, and similarly how many types of constants are there, and how can we define the constants in a C program. So here you can see the definition. Variables are used are storing the data that can change during program execution. So variable, the name itself is telling that the value can be varied or it can be changed. So initially you can give a value to a variable, and it is not necessary that the variable should maintain a same value. It may modify in the program, or it may change later in the program, or it may maintain the same value also. But it is not necessary that the value should not be changed throughout the program. So the definition of variable says that it is going to store a value, or it is going to allocate memory for a value, and then the value can be changed in the remaining part of the program. And similarly, constant also can be used to work on variables, to store values, and these constants will not change the value present in a variable. They remain same throughout the program. We cannot change the value present in a particular variable. So we'll see in detail about variables and constants. So variable, you can see variable is a storage location in the memory with a name identifier used to hold a value. So whenever we say that there is a variable will store a value, definitely it should be associated with some name. A variable should have a name to be called. It should have a name to be identified. What is the name of the variable, which value it is going to store. So definitely it is associated with some name. So we'll see the syntax, how to declare a variable in a C program. So the following is the syntax: data type of the variable, name of the variable. Data type. So whenever you are storing a variable here, we should say what type of values it is going to store, or what type of values we can access under that variable name. For example, if you want to access or use a particular variable to store integer values, then the data type will be integer. Or if you want to store character type of values, the data type will be character. So definitely a variable should be associated with some name, and it should be associated with some data type also. So data type will tell what type of value we are going to store in that particular variable. So here you can see the two examples. One is int age and next one is float salary. So int age is a variable name, so which it can store a value of type integer, and next one is salary, a variable name again, which can store a value of type float. So you know the difference between int and float. Int can store numerical values, positive or negative values without fractional part, and the float has the capability to store positive or negative values with fractional part. So definitely whenever we are naming the variables, it would be very good that if you give the name of the variable related to the task instead of giving like int a comma b comma c. So if you give the name of the variable that is related to the task, it will be very helpful for us to understand what that variable is used in future, and you can understand what task is going in the program. So it is advisable to give the name of the variable related to the task, but you don't have to be necessary follow the rule. You can give any name to the variable, and we have to follow the rules of identifiers while naming the variables. So this is the syntax of declaring a variable in a C program. So before using any variable, it should be declared. Without declaration, you can't use a variable in the program. For example, if I want to use a variable called as x in my program, then definitely I have to declare under some data type, either integer or float or character, whatever it may be. So if you use that variable without declaration, that means you are using the variable without the permission, without intimating who that variable is, then you might get a error called as undeclared variable name. So declaration is very much necessary. Just like when you are entering into the college, you register your name and everything, and then you start attending the classes. Similarly, it is also very much necessary to give the variable declaration before using it in the program. Undeclared variables results errors in the program. So this is the uh, initial part of variables, like how they are declared and how they can be used. And next we will see what are different types of variables, what is a place of declaration where we can declare them, and how we can use them is nothing but are different types of variables. So here you can see the first one is local variables, the variables that are declared inside a block. So if you are declaring some variable inside a block, let it be I am declaring int a here, then I can say that a is local to this particular block only. The meaning of local is you can access in that particular block or in that function, you can't access outside that. So outside the block, suppose if I am having one more block and if I declare one more variable with the same name called as int a, then this int a would be different from this int a because their scope is different. The place where they have declared is different. So this is called as local variable, which means that a variable declared inside a block or a function can be accessed in that block or in that function only. You can't access them outside them because their scope is not visible outside the block. And next one is global variables. So where do we declare global variables? If you want any particular variable to be accessed in any part of the program or in any block of the program, then you can declare it as a global variable. For example, so after declaring header files, just before writing main function, suppose if I declare a variable called as some int y and I'm having main function, let us consider I'm having some other functions also in my program or some other blocks also in my program. If I want this particular variable to be accessed in any part of the program or in any block of the program, then I have to declare this variable globally. That means we are not specifying or we are not limiting to a function, we are declaring it globally outside all the functions so that it can be accessed in any part of the program such that you won't get any error. So unlike local variable, it is not necessary that you have to declare inside the block. You can declare outside the block and use it in any part of the program. So whenever you think that a particular variable is used in every block or anywhere, it is better you declare globally. Global declaration is, it is enough that you declare once and you can use it in any number of blocks. If you don't declare that variable globally, every time you have to declare that variable locally in each and every block. And next type of variable is static variable. So static variable is nothing but we use this static mainly in functions, especially when you want to retain the old values. For example, if you are having a particular function, let it be void f1. So this function is having some variable called as int a whose initial value is, let it be 1. And let us consider after few lines of program or something, this value will be incremented and then the value of a will be printed on the screen. For example, you consider this variable a and here the data type of variable is integer and it is initialized to some value 1. So now this is a normal variable declaration so that it acts like a local variable. So what happens to a local variable? Once the block execution is completed, once you come outside of that particular block, then you can't hold this value of a anymore. Whenever you start the block again a value starts with 1. Let us consider initially when I am running this, when I am executing this function f1, a value is 1, later I am incrementing the value, it became 2, 3, 4 and so on. For example, let us think. So now finally a value is 4. Now once the block is completed, once you come outside of the function and once you go back to the function again, then the same value will not be maintained. Again it starts with a equal to 1, because once the block is completed, the scope of the variable will be completed. Inside memory, a value is initially 1, later it modified to 2 and then 3 and then it is modified to 4. Now a value is finally 4 in the memory. Now once the block is completed, the value or the variable will be removed from the memory because the scope is local. So once you start the function again or once you execute it again A is going to start with value 1 inside the memory. So now to avoid this kind of situation, suppose if you want to retain the old values, that is, even though the block is completed, even though I go back to the block once again, I want to continue with previous value, or if I want to retain the old value, then I have to declare this particular variable as static. So static will retain the old value even though the value of a is initially 1 and later on incrementing a became 2, 3, 4 and then you came outside the block. When you go back to the block again, still the value of a will be 4 only. It will not start from the beginning. This is because when you declare a particular variable under static, the variable will be present in the memory until complete program execution is completed. If a variable is declared under local scope, the variable will be deleted or removed from the memory once the block execution is completed. But static is not like that. Because static is retaining the old value, that particular variable will stay in the memory until complete program execution is completed. So we'll see this concept in detail in functions also while looking at the concept of storage classes. Now just an introduction to what type of variables and how many types of variables we can use. So we are looking at that right now. And last one is automatic variable. By default, all local variables will be automatic. So automatic in the sense a variable can be declared inside a block and then a variable which is declared inside local scope or local variable will be present in the memory only up till that block execution or function execution is completed. Once block or function execution is completed, the variable is no more available inside the memory. So those are the characteristics of automatic variables. By default, all these local variables will be automatic variables only. So why we call by default is because when you are declaring a local variable inside a block, you write int a also. By default, your compiler will consider it as auto int a. You don't mention any class, any type of variable also. It will consider it under automatic storage class. So these are different parts of the program where you can declare a variable. So first one is local variable. You can declare a variable inside a block or inside a function so that the variable can be accessed in that block or in that function only. Once the block execution is completed, outside the block you can't access that variable anymore, which is called as local variable. And next one is global variable. If you want a particular variable to be accessed in any part of the program, any block of the program, then you have to declare the variable above all the functions, outside all the functions, which is called as a global variable. Such type of variables will be present in the memory until complete program execution is completed. And next one is static variable. Whenever you want to retain the old values of a particular variable, even though the block execution is completed, when you go back to the block once again, so again it will start with the initial values. So if you want to avoid such situations, when you have problems such type as you want to retain the old values, you want to continue the execution with old values when you go back to the function, then the variable should be under static. And last one is automatic. By default, all variables will be automatic, which means that their scope is local and they are present in the memory until that block execution is completed. So these are about different types of variables. And we'll see the next one, how to initialize a variable. Initialization is nothing but giving some value. So why do we call initialization is, it is something like we are giving the starting value of the variable. Initialization need not mean that we should start always with 0, always with 1 or something like that. Initialization can be any value depending on the problem. We can give any particular value. There is no rule that you should start with either 0 or 1 or -1. So a variable can be initialized at the time of declaration only. So actually what is the syntax of variable declaration? That is data type of the variable and variable name ended with a semicolon, just like int age or float salary. And whenever you are initializing, including this declaration syntax, we will just add equal to some value, that is called as initialization. So if I write int a equal to 10, what does it mean? In my program, the variable a is going to start with the value 10. It starts with value 10. Later it may increase in the program or decrease, or it may remain same also. That is secondary, but you are saying that in your program it starts with value 10. So we call this as initialization. A variable can be initialized at the time of this declaration only. When you declare, there itself if you assign some value, that is called initialization. Otherwise, if you simply declare some variable like int age or something like this is called just declaration, and if some value is added to that, it is called initialization. So what type of value you will give for initialization depends upon this data type. If it is integer, you give integer type of value. If it is float variable, we will give float type of values. Then only they become valid. So this is about variable initialization, and here you can see an example program how a variable can store values and how we can display it. So initially here we are having int x equal to 10. All variables in this program have been initialized. Int x is a variable of data type integer whose value is initialized to 10. Y is a variable of data type float whose value is initialized to 3.14. Z is a variable of data type character whose value is initialized to A, capital A. Here capital A is an alphabet. And you should remember that whenever you are using these alphabetical values as constants, then you have to enclose them in single quotations. This is very much important in programming languages. Actually, when you are writing a number like int x equal to 10, you don't put 10 into any single quotations, because it is clearly mentioned that this is a number, it is a constant, it cannot be changed. But whenever you are declaring a character variable, that is some character z equal to a in single quotations. So why did we enclose in single quotations? Is we are telling that this a is a constant alphabetical value. Here a is not name of the variable, a is an alphabetical value. Here you can see I am having the variable name as z. I can use z, I can use x, I can use any name in the place of z. Variable name can be anything, because variable name will give us the name that is used to store the value. But what you are storing inside is nothing but value. So what value you are storing here? If you are storing this a and you want to say that this a is an alphabet, directly alphabetical value, but not a variable name, then you have to enclose in single quotations. When you enclose in single quotations, then we can understand that it is an alphabetical value. If you don't include in single quotations, then it looks like variable. So what happens if it looks like variable? A variable name can be replaced with any other names. If not x, I'll write a p or q or r or something like that. In the place of z, I can write any name, that is acceptable. But in the place of a, I can't write any other alphabet, because in this case, a is nothing but direct alphabetical value. I am representing value, I am not representing any variable name here. So whenever you are representing alphabetical values as constants, they should be enclosed in single quotations. It is very much necessary that we should remember, when you are referring to direct value, it should be in single quotations. If you don't refer, that means that they are nothing but some variable names. So the difference between them is variable name. If not this, we will use some other name. But alphabet is not like that. Alphabetical value a should be replaced with a only. No other alphabet can be replaced with this a. Okay. And next, so printf, we are printing the value of x percentile d because it is integer, and value of y is percentile f, which is float, and z is character. So we'll print character, all the values will be printed on the screen. A simple program how a variable can be initialized with different data types. And next one is constants. So constants, apart from variables, constant is quite opposite of variable. Constant also stores a value like variable, but the value in a variable can be modified, but a value in constant cannot be modified. See, in program, there are some situations where the value of a variable may be modified. For example, if I consider initially I value as 0, and later if I increment this I value, then I becomes 1, and maybe I becomes 2, 3, 4, and so on. So what do you observe here is, initially I value is 0, later it became 1, and then it became 2, 3, 4, and so on. So that means the value of I has been changing. So here I becomes a variable. Suppose if I declare a particular value, or if I assign a particular value to a variable, and I don't want to change the value throughout the program, I want that variable to retain the same value throughout the program, then that variable should be a constant variable. It is a constant. Okay, so a constant is a value that does not change during program's execution. In any part of the program, the value cannot be changed. It is the same value. So that is called as constant. So here in C language, we can define constants in three ways, or we can represent constants in three ways. One is literal constant, defined constant, and you can use const keyword. C-O-N-S-T, const keyword. So here we'll see actually what are constants in C language, what are different types of constants. So here you can see all numbers, integer constants are nothing but all numbers are constants. Whether it may be positive or negative, they are constants only. Because if you take number 10, I can't write any other number in the place of 10. 23 cannot be replaced with any other number, or minus 95 cannot be replaced with any other number. So all the numbers, that is positive or negative numbers without fractional part, because they come under integer data type in our C language, so we call them as integer constants. And coming to next one, floating point constants. All the numbers with fractional part can be called as floating point constants. Minus 2.35 cannot be replaced with any other number. It should be minus 2.35 only. Or 6.92 cannot be replaced with any other number. So these are also constants. Similarly, character constants. As I told you, whenever you are representing direct alphabetical value, that alphabetical value cannot be replaced with any other alphabet. Just like A can't be replaced with B or C or D, or X cannot be replaced with Y or Z or P or Q. So all the alphabets are constants, and they should be enclosed in single quotations. String constants. A string is nothing but group of characters. Group of characters should be enclosed in double quotations. So these group of characters also, when you form a bundle of characters like hello is there, hello cannot be replaced with any other combination. If you want to spell it in the same way, hello should be H-E-L-L-O. Instead of H, you can't replace any other alphabet. Instead of E, you can't replace with any other alphabet. So all these are different types of constant that we are already using in the program. So just we are identifying that the values cannot be replaced with any other values, so they are also constants. Okay. And next we'll see about each type of constant. As we have seen how to represent constants in a C program, we'll represent using three ways. One is literal constant, and next one is defined constant, and next one is using const keyword. So first one we'll see what is a literal constant. So here you can see I'm having a program. So we'll enter a value of X, whatever may be the value of X. Maybe X value I'll enter as 20 or 40 or something like this. Whatever value is entered by the user, it is added with a constant value. What is that constant value here? That is 5. So 5 can be called as a literal constant here. X value may be 20 or X value may be 40. But what you are adding with, the value which you are adding with is not going to change. It is going to be only 5. So you can call this particular constant as literal constant. Not only adding, you can subtract, or you can multiply, or you can divide with some constant number. So that can be called as a literal constant. This is one way of using constant in our program. Or you can take some example like I equal to I plus 1. So whatever may be the value of I, you are constantly adding a value 1. So these type of constants are called as literal constants, which we will use regularly in our programs. And next part is defined constant. So that we are defining using a preprocessor directive. Hash is a preprocessor directive. At the time of at the time of writing the header file, we can declare a constant also. So here hash define, you are defining a constant. What is the name of the constant? The name of the constant is pi, and whose value is equal to 3.14159. You are defining a constant. So what happens if you declare this constant or this type of declaration globally? So now you can see inside the main function, I am having a variable. Radius is a variable. It is a variable because you can enter any type of value for radius. Area is also a variable because the value of area depends upon what value you have entered for radius. So if the value of radius changes, area also changes. In this case, these both are called as variables where they can hold or they can store different type of values. So here you are asking the user to enter the value of radius, and next value of radius will be entered from keyboard. So we are writing the formula for area of circle, that is area equal to pi into r into r. Here pi we have mentioned that it is a constant whose value will be 3.14159. So whenever this variable name, this constant name pi occurs inside the program, it will be replaced with that particular value and it cannot be changed. So wherever you are using pi in any number of lines of program or how much lengthy program, the value should be 3.14159 only. It cannot be changed because you have declared that this is a constant by using the keyword hash define. So we call this type of constant as defined constant, and then area will be printed. So this is one way of using constant. Not only this pi value, you can declare any variable. Suppose you want to declare some tax rate or something like that, or you can write that hash define sales underscore tax something. You can mention the percentage as some 0.085 or something. So whenever this variable or constant name occurs in the program, the value will be replaced with 0.085. If you try to modify the value, then you will get error in the program because it has been defined as constant. You don't have any rights to change the value. You can just use it wherever it is required. So this type of constant is called as defined constant. And next one is using const keyword. So another example is you can use a keyword called as const. That is, suppose if you write only int radius equal to 5, then this part we call it as variable declaration, and because you have given some value, it becomes initialization. So here radius value is initialized to 5, and then I can modify it also because it is a variable. But once it is added with this keyword const, then you don't have any right to modify because you are telling that this value has been fixed. This value has been fixed with this keyword called as const. So throughout the program, wherever radius occurs in your program, it should be 5 only, you can't modify. So in this program, you can see two types of constants. One is a defined constant and another one is using const keyword. Using defined constant, I have declared the variable of pi as 3.14159, and using const keyword, I have made the radius value as 5 throughout the program, that it cannot be modified. So whenever area is calculated, pi value will be replaced with this value and radius will be replaced with the value 5, and it can be calculated and area will be displayed on the screen. Okay, so this is one way where you can use const keyword. In const keyword also, if you are declaring a particular constant using const keyword, then you don't have any right to modify once it is declared. So once you say that it is constant, then the value should be same throughout the program. If you try to add something or subtract something, or you try to make some changes in constants, then you are going to generate some, you are going to get some errors in the program. So this is about const keyword. So this is an example where you can use both hash define and const keywords to represent constants in your program. Okay. So this is all about variables and constants. So the main differences between variable and constant is variable is used to hold some value and the value can be modified in the program, and constant is also used to store some value, but the value will be fixed and you can't change the value in the program execution part. If you try to modify anything in the program execution, then error will be generated. So these are the main key differences that we should remember while using variables and constants in the program. Thank you.